With home recording and home audio recording in particular becoming more popular nowadays, people are going to need a place to do it. And not all of us have access to a studio with a sound booth that's expelling all those outside noises and the echo and reverb that you don't want. So the reason why I thought of this video is because a lot of people don't have that intuition to create it or the availability of tools to create it, and some people just don't have the space. This is where that concept came from. Welcome back to the Rebel Tech channel. I'm Justin, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to create a $100 sound booth. Now, prices fluctuate all the time. At the time of making this, November 30th, 2020, I got all the supplies for roughly about $100, give or take like $10, $20, but right around that $100 mark is where we're shooting for. I will leave links to everything down below and some other options if you do decide to go a different route as far as quality is concerned. But before we get started, if you have any questions, comments, or anything whatsoever based on this booth, based on gear, things you might want to get once you make this booth, anything, please leave it down in the comments section down below. I'll be happy to answer any questions or just talk to you guys about gear or this sound booth or your sound booth. I'll be very excited to see if people actually go ahead and build their own. If you want to ask me more directly or just hang out with me, every Saturday afternoon, night-ish, I stream on this channel and on Twitch for about an hour on this channel. It usually ends up being like 5, 6 o'clock that I start streaming. So give me a follow over there on Twitch. If you give me a follow, you'll know exactly when I go live, so be greatly appreciated. And if you found this video helpful, entertaining, or anything whatsoever, please leave a like and consider subscribing. So let's start off with, what is a sound booth? Well, keep it simple. It's a booth in which you record sound. I know, pretty obvious and blunt, but to be more scientific and more in-depth, a sound booth is an area in which you record audio in a controlled environment, meaning that it's controlled in a sense that your audio is not reverberating off the walls, it's not having any echoey sound to it. It's controlled to get the raw audio from your source, most likely your mouth or an instrument, to the microphone. And they are used all over the place, all over the world, and it's a simple concept, but people don't get it right. There are certain things that need to go into soundproofing and sound control that there's an infrastructure, there's a foundation to build off of. Of course, in this video, we're doing it on the cheap and we're trying our best to make it as controlled as we can. But I just want to talk about how sound is controlled. Your space is completely moldable. Molding? I don't even know what the word is, but if you were to take it like a piece of clay and mold it the way you want it. So the number one source of reducing sound or excess sound from the outside world is space. So keep it simple. You make a wall. You put a space in between. You create another wall. And we're talking, for example, drywall, stud, drywall, space, drywall, stud, drywall. In between that, of course, you're going to have some insulation that will suppress it a little bit more so you avoid any reverberation through the walls. But space still is the number one thing, because when it hits that first surface, it rumbles around in that space and eventually does get through, but it's much more suppressed than if it was just one wall with the studs and the insulation in between. Now, once you're in that room and you've rejected all that noise, you need to find a way to avoid reverberation. Some reverberation and some echo is good. Some people create a room to create a certain sound and a certain feel of the room. But to keep it simple, acoustic paneling is probably your best option. They're very fancy, like wall art type stuff that just in squares and octagons, all types of shapes and sizes. Now to the meat and potatoes of this video. This is supposed to be a sound booth that is not only space effective, but it can be portable. I will get into specifics a little later, but the way this is going to be constructed will allow you to move it anywhere you want to go. Sure, there are things you need to get in addition to this, and it's not going to be $100 if you do decide to go in a different route, in the sense of, oh, I'm going to bring this to multiple places. But I will leave options, and I will talk about options later if you want to bring it somewhere else. For me, in this video, the main goal is I want to put a booth in my house or in my little office or studio area at home. Now that we got all the exposition and the explanation out of the way, where did this concept come from? This idea of using sound blankets or moving blankets come from? Well, it was a bunch of things. It was being in studios, seeing that people use moving blankets and use sound blankets as sound suppression and avoidance of reverb. It's also a concept that my mom actually she didn't tell me. She actually just through time was showing me. In our house, we have Roman shades, which, if you know what Roman shades are, they kind of fold up or flake up as you raise them and lower them. I wanted to take that concept and put it towards a portable booth, or a more collapsible booth, if you will. So we're taking these sound blankets. I'm going to call them sound blankets. They are technically moving blankets, but I'm calling them sound blankets because in this application, they are sound blankets. And they're not much different than official sound blankets. The other side of the coin is I am a sailor by trade. I have been sailing more than half of my life, and the concept of rolling canvases and sails comes naturally to me. Tying knots and rolling sails are a huge part of it, and rolling your sail and rolling these sound blankets are going to be a big part of this, and tying knots. So we're going to get into the one major knot you're going to need, and that is called the bowline. Very easy concept, but a hard thing to grasp if you're not used to tying knots. So in this story of the bowline, there are 3 characters. There's the bunny, there's its hole, and there's the tree. Right there. Bunny, hole, tree. Bunny goes up through the hole, around the tree, doesn't matter which way, and then gets scared and goes back down the hole. At this point, you have the bunny's head and you have his trail in the hole. You take those 2 things and the tree and pull them in opposite directions, and it will leave you with a loop that will not break, at least when you pull on it. The point behind a good knot, or a great knot, easy to tie and very hard to break. So if you were to rip on this thing, you could tow boats, you could tow just about anything. But if you want to undo it, simple, turn it over, break the back of it, and it's done. This line is kind of crappy, but it's what I could get in a pinch. I really don't feel like going to West Marine and getting good line, especially when this is just fine. Plus, they charge a lot for good line. I don't really want to spend a lot of money. We're trying to keep this around $100. Alright, so it's time to build this thing. And it's very, very simple concept. There's not much to it, and I'm going to go through the supplies first, and then we're going to be talking about what the process is in putting this thing up. It's very simple. It's just like hanging just about anything, like a poster or hanging a curtain or whatever it is. It's a very simple concept. So just follow along. We're going to go through the pieces right now, and then eventually we're going to actually build this thing. So first off, you're going to get sound blankets. For example, I picked up the Shure Max moving blankets, which are roughly about 35 bucks on Amazon, and you want 4 of these because you got 4 walls. Don't worry too much about the roof or the ceiling part of it. You can get another one to post up on the ceiling if you'd like. You can get a smaller one, or you could put up a blanket or whatever. You could always use a blanket that you already have and post that up as well. But you don't necessarily need it. At this point, you're really trying to reduce the area, which really does a good job of reflection. The ceiling or the floor, as long as the floor and the ceiling are minimal, and especially if the floor is carpet or if you put a blanket down, like I said, if you have blankets, you could use those as well. But the moving blankets are the infrastructure for this sound booth. So if you're going to build this sound booth, have a carpet underneath it, or you could use blankets for the floor and the ceiling. So just so you know, you have options, but you don't necessarily need it for the floor and the ceiling. It would help, but you don't necessarily need it. The next thing is we're getting wooden dowels. The ones that I got were 1 inch thick by 48 inches long. These are to help 2 things. One, keeping the weight down, and so they don't sway, so the walls don't sway as much. And when you roll it up, it makes it a little bit easier to roll them straight and have a cleaner roll. The next thing is grommets. They're one of those things, like, you could get really, really good ones, or you could get really, really crappy ones. Well, this started off with me using 1/4 inch ones. Bad idea. Don't get the 1/4 inch ones. Get the 1/2 inch ones. They're a little bit more beefy. I don't think the fact that the material was bad with the 1/4 inch ones. I just feel like they were too small and not enough meat on the bones to support what I was doing. Now that you got your grommets, you're gonna need hooks. I got the ones that you just twist in and unscrew in. I know that not everybody has a ceiling that they could screw into easily. At this point, I'm just giving you the materials to make the booth. Unfortunately, you gotta figure out some of this stuff on your own. Like the infrastructure for the ceiling of how you're gonna hang these things and how you're gonna actually put it together. I have a wooden ceiling, so I'm very fortunate to have that. With drywall, you can get anchors put in. These things aren't that heavy. They probably weigh like, I don't know, maybe like 10 pounds each. So as long as you got hooks in there that could handle 10 pounds, and if you distribute, you're gonna have multiple on each side, so if you distribute out 4 of them, really you're just putting 2.5 pounds per hook. So get some hooks that screw in, or if you have another option or another concept that I am not explaining in this video, let me know down in the comments, and everyone else can be informed about that as well. And that is basically it. That's the infrastructure for this booth. Very simple concept, as I said. There's not much to this. It's just a lot of planning, and for me, it was a lot of trial and error. Alright, so as you can see here, we are in the area where I'm going to be having my booth set up, and above me there is the walls strapped down with my lines, and using a simple bowline and a couple of hitches to throw them together. Pretty simple concept. Everyone can do it. It's pretty easy. You've seen in the intro and the beginning of this video how to tie that. But this is basically what it is. You roll them up and you tie them up when you're not using them, if they're being used in the same place all the time. If you want, you could take them down and put them in other places, but you don't have to. If you're happy with them like this, then you're good. And that's pretty much it. Pretty simple concept. Give me a sec. We'll get in the booth. All right, so we are in the booth. It's not fully set up yet, but I just want to point out a couple of things before we get into the full setup. So as you can see, I got my AT4040 here, roughly about, 6 inches away from my mouth. Roughly where you're going to keep it. You could get closer, you could get further away, but you notice the ambient noise is much less, and there are some flaws that I'm going to fix by tying them up. So if you remember, the grommets at the bottom are open, so there's nothing in them. So I use this line, this thinner line, to go through them, tie them off just simply, just overhand knot around the grommet, and then you got the two tails. Make sure they're even so that you could put them around each one. You go through one side of one, and then the other side is just going to be a tail, and tie a square knot. If you don't know what a square knot is, it's very simple. Take your right side and the left side, right over left, left over right. So basically the same one is going over. So now that I have everything tightened up a little bit better, I noticed one thing. It's not flawless. The walls are not fully enclosed. There's still gaps here and there, and there's going to be gaps because it's not flawless. It's significantly better than you would have in an open room like I do in my regular videos. Granted, the room is fairly isolated. It's not great, but it's good enough to get the job done, and you don't have massive echo, or you don't have any reverberations that's so egregious that you really just can't make anything. So for this is really trying to get a more controlled environment. And the thing that I'm going to add on along these seams, you might be able to see that there's a grommet here, and I put those in just to see if I would need to add extra grommets for this purpose. I had an idea. I didn't want to go fully through with it. I just did this to test it. But now I'm going to go fully through it, and I'm going to add in probably another 3 more. So that would be 1 on top and 1 on bottom, and then 3 in the middle. So you put 1 in the middle and then split the difference. So like right about here, and then another one fairly distant, the same distance from the center point. This will allow you to use that line, tie it together just like you did on the bottom, and not have any issues with bleeding out of noise or anything. Chances are you're not going to have that big of a difference because, well, the floor, if your ceilings are like mine, which roughly about, I'm 6 foot and about another 1.5 feet, so like 7.5 feet. If they're 7.5 feet, 8-foot ceilings, these are not going to reach the floor. But that's not the point of this. This is to get a controlled environment on the cheap and trying to get it right around $100. It's not a flawless system, but it's significantly better than a lot of people's setups. All right, so now I'm going to give you a couple more examples. Before we were doing a example on the AT4040 large diaphragm condenser microphone. Now we're going to be using the Oktava MK012 small diaphragm condenser microphone and show you just another example of what you may encounter in this type of scenario, how it sounds. And like I said, these walls are not flawless. They're just to control the environment in a pinch or in a area in which you can't put a full-fledged booth in. That's the concept of this video is not to say, oh, I made the greatest booth of all time. No, the point is to give you an option to make your audio sound that much better without breaking the bank, and also making it convenient for you to just have something like this. So a lot of people don't have access, like I said before, they don't have access to studios. They don't have access to building something, be it the tools or just the space to put it. So this is an option. This is an option for a lot of people. Okay, so the last example I'm going to give you is the Sennheiser MKH416 shotgun microphone, a very popular microphone in the voiceover booths and voiceover world in general. This microphone can be used in multiple angles and however you want to set it up. If you want to set it up overhead to emulate a angle in which you would have it on a film set. For example, a lot of times when ADR is done, ADR is post-recording of audio, when the audio in a film is not right. So they go into a booth and they take it, they do another take in a controlled environment, they follow along with the movie or the whatever it is, and just act it out again. And then they plug it in, they add in the effects to make it sound like it's actually there. So out of the 3 microphones that I've shown in this video, this one probably is the most suited for this application, mostly because it's most expensive and having the best frequency response out of all of them. And it better, because it's 3 times as much money. So that's something to consider when you're buying a microphone for this application. Granted, if you're not doing voiceover work, that's a tongue twister. Wow, can't talk today. If you're not doing voiceover work and you're just doing singing, then you probably would go more so a large diaphragm condenser microphone like the AT4040, the NT1 or NT1A by Rode, one of those examples. This is what you're going to encounter with all these microphones in this makeshift booth. I know it's not perfect, and I understand completely if it's not flawless, but it's good for people who are just starting out and don't have the infrastructure, be it physically or monetarily or whatever, to have a full-fledged booth. So really all you need is all the supplies that I've talked about, a light. I'll leave all the links down below for all the supplies that you're going to need. And I've narrowed it down. I've bought a couple extra things just in case. Some things that didn't work out, some things that did. I'm just going to put the ones that worked out for this. I might add a couple of more things to give you options, but just keep an open mind and be creative with this. It's not supposed to be my idea is the only idea. Plenty of people have done this. Mike from Booth Junkies, he does tons of these videos in home studio setups, and he's like the guy to go to when it comes to that. All right, so that is the sound booth, and we'll just finish up this video in here because it sounds pretty good. And obviously I'm not wearing my headphones, so I don't know exactly how it sounds, but I got a good idea. When you work with audio a lot, you learn to adapt your ears to be like, I'm not hearing it in live, especially when you hear yourself. To me, I'm not a huge fan of hearing myself in headphones live because it's a little off for me. I can do it, I just prefer not to. That's why you usually don't see me wearing headphones. I did it when I did the acoustic guitar video because that wasn't my voice, that was a instrument. So when it's an instrument, I like wearing headphones because I like the sound better. So thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it helped put some ideas in your head about creating a sound booth on the cheap and try to get it right around that $100 mark. Give or take what materials you will use will determine if it gets around that $100 mark. I can't see you going over $150 for this because the supplies are fairly inexpensive, especially to get it from Amazon. And of course, if you need any help creating this, or if you have if you're in a pinch saying that you don't have a ceiling that you could plug it into or hang it on, or if you have any just any issues, let me know down in the comments. Also, if you have answers to those questions or have ideas for people who don't have this scenario that I'm in, that they can't put it up as easily, please leave them down in the comments. It's going to be very helpful. Just because it's not in this video doesn't mean that the comment section won't be helpful to others as well. That's the point of a community, and this community in particular. We work together and we try to learn a lot from each other, and I'm learning just as much as you are, and I'd like to get other perspectives. I'm not always right. I'm probably more wrong than I am right when it comes to creating, and that's a good thing because I learned from it, and the good times are a representation of all the bad that I learned from. So just keep that in mind. And I am not perfect. I am not an expert at this, but I certainly have a lot of experiences to share with you guys and let you guys know that I've been there in a lot of scenarios where things go wrong, and this is me letting you know that just because I messed up doesn't mean that you can't figure it out like this. I came to a bunch of snags and a bunch of bumps in the road. There's a lot of mistakes that were in this video. Obviously, you're not seeing them because I'm giving you what works. And when you're doing this, you're going to come into some scenarios where things don't work as well as I'm portraying it right now. It's not going to be perfect, but that's why you can ask me down in the comments and talk to me. You could hop in my stream every Saturday night, afternoonish, around 5, 6 o'clock. I usually go live on this channel and on Twitch. You could ask me questions there all about this. It'd be more like direct conversation with you guys. So if you're interested in that, go give me a follow over on Twitch, and you'll know when I go live. Also, if you found this video helpful, entertaining, or anything whatsoever, please leave a like and consider subscribing for more videos like this, more DIYs. I'm hopefully gonna do some more DIY stuff. I really enjoy building things and creating things like that. When the next project comes along, or the next project is given to me, maybe by you guys, I will be happy to consider it, write up a script, try to make up a budget for it, and see if I could do it. That'd be fun. So until next time, be safe, be kind. If you go out, please wear a mask, as always, and I will see you in the next video.
Okay. Yes.
That's it. Down.
Down.
So far, so good.
Yes.
Let's get you up.
I can nod, but you didn't ask me to shake.
So, welcome to the Sample 17 project.
She obviously isn't taking no for an answer, because otherwise I would be able to shake my head left and right. But she didn't care about that. She just cares if I can nod.
Hello, bonjour.
Oh, bonjour.
It works.
Oui.